Hey everybody, merry any regular old day of the year. Today is not a special day. It's no different than any other day. Unless you're pagan, of course, then this is a holiday to you. If you're pagan, and you would say Merry Christ's death, which is what Merry Christmas is saying. Right now I'm standing on the other side of the highway across the street from mi casa. And what you're looking at is a 5,000 square foot property on the first level that has the ability to be 15,000 square feet. Of course, it takes money to do that. And I don't have that money. Not right now. Someday I will. Downstairs is a bodega, also known as a warehouse, which consists of, during regular weekday business hours, a what you would call a flea market, or a bazaar, or a tianguis. And by the way, the reason I'm doing this video today is because this is the slowest traffic's been in a long time. And usually I can't even go outside with my phone because it's so noisy with semis and stuff going down the road. Here's the police coming by. You'll notice the police with his lights on. That's pretty normal for cops just to drive around with their lights on. You'll also see that where they have, you'll have 4 or 5 in the back with machine guns. And it's a little different here when you see machine guns. There's a bus. Those buses go. Those, believe it or not, those buses do a lot of short-term stuff. But when you see the cops with machine guns, it's not like if you were to see a bunch of military, because you see military, you see federal, you see local police all the time driving up and down the roadways with machine guns. It doesn't, not like if it were in the United States, you would think, oh crap, martial law is here. You wouldn't feel threatened. You don't feel threatened by it here because you know they're really out to just protect people from actual real criminals, those that cause harm, injury, or loss to people. They're not here really to like shut you down or your freedoms down like would be the case in the United States. So yeah, I don't mind when I see cops and machine guns here. I would prefer seeing the citizens, the people with the machine guns. Don't get me wrong, I'd much prefer that. But here it's not as threatening for whatever reason. Anyways, the downstairs warehouse acts as a flea market. We have 10 by 10 spaces that people can have their little tables and sell things, and some fruit stand is one thing. What else? My brain is drawing a blank. One person has plastics. We call it plasticos, brooms, garbage cans, paper products, you know, things like that. Anyways, there's an assortment of businesses that can be run down there. And what we do is we have the plants and pottery. We don't so much sell the pottery separate from the plants or the plants separate from the pottery. We make arrangements. So you'll see, I don't know if I can zoom in for you here. You'll see that we have cactus in a pot, right? Well, we'll go and we'll get the cactus and we'll get the pot and we'll put it together and we'll sell that. So we're not a nursery and we're not a pottery store. We're kind of a blend of the two. And this road normally has a ton of traffic, so it's a good high traffic area. And we're building up. We're going to keep building. What you see in the top left is like an apartment. It's an apartment. It's a pretty big one. And then what you see on the right is where more rooms are going to go. And then there's going to be another level above that, which eventually will be the main living space. And then there's land around it. We want to buy the land to the left of it. There's more land in the back. And it's a pretty nice place here. From the rooftop, you can see rolling hills in the back where there's farmland. I'll just kind of take you over here. I don't know if you can see real well. I'll take you over here and kind of show you there's mountains in the backdrop. So we can actually see mountains from our house. It's very pretty here. This is a huge factory that a very wealthy man owns, and he actually lives up top there. He owns a lot of land around here. He's a nice guy. But a lot of folks think there's no money in Mexico, and I don't know why people hate Mexicans so much and why Donald Trump stirred up so much hate in people. He stirred up a lot of hate. Like, we have to build a wall to keep these people out. Let me tell you something. These people, if they were smart, they'd build a wall to keep you out, okay? There's so much wealth and so much money in Mexico. It's not even funny. Certainly there are a lot of poor people that cross the border looking for a better life. And I think that might be part of the problem, is in the States, you only see the poor people. You don't see the wealthy, because the wealthy have no need for you. They don't need you. They don't need your country. They're wealthy already. They already have hundreds and hundreds of acres of land that have been paid off for generations. And that's the thing about a lot of Mexicans. You can go to the park. You know, in the United States, at the park benches, they put railings on them so you can't lay on them. You don't see that here. They have nice wide open park benches. Anybody's welcome to lay on them and sleep on them however they want, whenever they want. But you know what the funny thing is? You don't see homeless people. You don't see them doing that, because these people, believe it or not, they all have houses, and most of them have houses that have been in their family and paid off for generations, because this is in large a cash-based society. And in a cash-based society where there is no credit, people tend to get things paid off, or they don't buy them. And when they do buy them, they own them forever and ever, and they stay in families and they get passed down generations to generations. I view this place as the promised land. So if you notice where my house ends on the left and where it ends on the right, you see where there's a kind of, the property looks like it takes a different shape. On the right there, that's not mine, okay? So that's a common wall that we share. And the reason is because when you own property here, you can do whatever you want all the way up to the property line. They don't have a 5-foot buffer or a 10-foot buffer. You know, that's called easement, and you have to leave it for the government to access it. No, you build all the way up. You build all the way up, all the way out, as far as you can, all the way up to the limit of your property line. And nobody says anything to you, nobody cares. Now, I'm sure in really congested downtown areas, there are some permitting issues that you have to go through. I'm gonna go ahead and cross the road here. There are some, but those are not big deals. Those are very minor, and there's only a few minor things that they're looking for. They don't tell you. Here's a nice thing I just did. The grass is just cut today, and it's still taking hold. That'll be done soon. That'll grow in and be real nice and rich, and we can set plants and pots out here. Forget what was I talking about. You know, just restrictions and things like that. In Mexico, they build the houses a certain way, and this is taught from generation to generation. And nobody questions a house how it's built. Nobody questions. You can see the columns, right? The columns here. All right. The pillars, right? And this is the main structural support for the house. So depending on how far this column is from this column determines how thick it needs to be, what size rebar needs to be in it, and how many of those rebar. If you want to put the columns closer together, then you need less rebar. It can be thinner rebar because you're going to have more columns. So depending on what you want to do and how big of an open space you want underneath, you just make the columns bigger and thicker and more concrete and more rebar. And of course, people here know this. Everybody knows this. It's not just a contractor that went to a course and got a license that knows this. Everybody knows how to build here. And basically, essentially, the brick here, this is just blowout, okay? This isn't what gives it any structure. You could put cardboard in there for all they care, because this is your skeletal. This is your structure right here, okay? So here we have a piping system which just catches our lavadora water or our washing machine water, catches runoff from the roof, and this pipe runs over here and everything drains into this Tanaka. And then if this one fills up, I actually have a pump. I can pump it into this one. And we use this to do things like water our lawn. You know, we have grass here. We like to have some green. And we water all of our plants. And this is a beautiful tree we planted a couple years ago that never quite got to grow because we left right after we planted it. And it was really starving when we got back, and we've been watering it. Now it's flourishing. We don't want to trim it because it's can get cold here, and we don't want to cause it harm. So once we get through February, we'll probably trim it up, and eventually that's going to be one of those nicely hedged trees that you see in like the centros in Mexico cities. They have these beautiful hedge trees. Querétaro has a lot of them. They're gorgeous. They give you a lot of shade, and you can pretty much shape them however you want. I think it's like a ficus. It's in the ficus family or something, but they're beautiful trees. And this is an outdoor bathroom. Now the interesting thing is my property actually ends right here on this line. Oops, almost tripped. My property ends right on this line, okay? And technically all this is not my property. You can do whatever you want with it. So here's the idea, guys. The idea is this. I have a vested interest in this because it's right in front of my property. No other man or woman in the world has an interest in this piece of property. No other man or woman can come to me and say, you can't plant that tree there, because they don't have a vested interest. Like my neighbor might, but his isn't as strong as mine because I am actually right here. He would be once removed from an interest as to what happens out here. Now, obviously, if the government wants to come through and widen the road, which they are planning on doing, they can do so. They can come and they can widen that road. But until that happens, and I don't even think they would cut into this driveway anyways, but until they widen that road, you know, and if they do widen it, they might cut into my driveway a little, but once they widen it, you know, depending on how far they come out with the wider road, they just take what they need, and until they need more, this remains something that I have the vested interest in, and this is going to be determined by me what happens here. And it's pretty neat. I like it. It's free. It's freedom here. I sense a lot of freedom. You know, I did a video where I got stopped by the police recently, and they wanted me to wear a face mask, and I just told them no. They wanted me to pull off to the road. I told them no, and they said, okay, go. And that's the idea here, is that, you know, sometimes, you know, Mexico is not perfect. It's got a lot of problems. There's a lot of corruption in the government. Nobody comes to you and says, pay taxes. You know, when you buy your fuel is when you're paying your majority of your taxes, because fuel here is like double what it is in the States. So you're going to pay, for a gallon of gas, instead of paying $2, you're going to pay $4 or $5 here. And essentially, that's your taxes. That's what feeds the government. And if you think about it, that's a fair way of doing it. If you travel, you're going to pay more. If you don't travel, you'll pay less. So the poorer people that don't have cars and they get around on bikes and they don't really go far, because usually in towns and villages, you have everything you need within a city block, and then the next city block has everything you need, and the next city block has everything you need, because there's just a bunch of little tiny businesses run out of people's garages downstairs while they live above them. And so they don't really have to travel far, so they don't bear a big burden of supporting the government. As much as somebody that might have a trucking business and they're trucking things all around and they have more money and they have more cars, they're going to bear a heavier load of supporting because they're using more of it, which, if you think about it, that's the fair way for a government to tax. I'm not against taxes, but I am against things being stolen from people. And the Bible talks about, first of all, Jesus never said, pay your taxes. When he was questioned about paying his taxes, he answered that question with another question. Okay? And he answered it in a roundabout way as to put the scoffers, the Pharisees, to kind of shut them up and turn them away. And they did. They got turned away, and they were perplexed by his answer. And when he says, give unto Caesar what's Caesar's, first of all, Caesar was a man. The United States government is not a man. It's a corporation. Caesar was a man. Secondly, question yourself and ask, do I have anything of Caesar's? What do I own that is Caesar's? Because the Bible says, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So if you go out and you grow crops, those crops belong to you. That's yours. That's not Caesar's, okay? If you go to work and you put out some time and energy and effort for an employer, that employer pays you money, that belongs to you, not to Caesar. So yes, and then also folks like to forget the second part of that scripture conveniently. When that says, give what is to God's, what is God's. And if you see the image that you are created in, whose image is on this coin, right? Whose image is on you? You are created in the image of God. What Jesus is saying, he's not saying pay your taxes. What Jesus is saying, he's saying, why don't you give yourself to God? You're so considered, you're so, preoccupied about where you're giving your money. Why don't you think about giving yourself to God? And that's what Jesus Christ is saying there. By no means is he saying that you have to give money to people that are trying to steal it. And that's the real problem I have with taxes. Now, another thing is, there's no law in the United States that says you have to pay taxes. It doesn't exist. The law says you have to file your taxes. Okay? And of course, I'm not going to get into all that, but that's what the law is. And of course, the Bible does not say it's a sin not to file your taxes. If you really want to get into it, it's not a law, it's legislation, but we won't go there. If you want to get into that, watch my other videos, you can learn that. So anyways, in Mexico, there is a property tax, but it's like $30 a year. It's not a big deal. We keep a bill of sale as well, but we do go ahead and comply and pay the $30 property tax. It's not that big a deal. It's not like in the States. If you own a 5,000 square foot property, you're going to pay $10,000 in property taxes a year. It's not like that at all here. It's much more reasonable. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to mention a couple things, and I always do something about Christmas, and I didn't really have a video about it this year. And just to let you know, this is a normal day. My family and I are working. Unfortunately, most everyone else is shut down, so there's not a lot we can do. But we are working, the plants and the pots and all that, and doing some house cleaning and things like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. If I think of something else, I'll do another video on it. For those of you out there that are true born-again Christians, that truly seek God, truly seek wisdom, that you know the difference, God bless you. God bless you. And I hope that the Lord keeps pouring wisdom out to you and pouring truth out to you, because it's amazing what God has shown me, things that he keeps showing me. If I could give any advice on anything that for you to see on my channel, it'd be go back a year ago and watch the video I did on Sabbath, a message to Catholics. And really that's a message to Christians, but I guess what I'm trying to say there in that title is that Christians, you're behaving like Catholics by not observing the true Sabbath. And guys, I'm not going to tell you I'm doing it perfect either. It's tough because at least in a Jewish society, everybody shuts down on Sabbath, right? And it's kind of easy not to do anything. It's difficult out here when you're in a world where everybody shuts down on Sunday, and the first day of the week when they should be working. But then on Sabbath, everybody's active and out doing things, and you run out of supply, and it's like, oh man, if I don't go get that milk today, I'm not going to be able to get it tomorrow. And it's tough. I'm not telling you I'm perfect on it. I'll tell you I need the grace of Jesus a lot when it comes to keeping Sabbath. But I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And, I'll have to answer and I'll be held accountable. And I pray the Lord has mercy on me if I don't keep Sabbath perfectly. When we fire up our gas stovetop to heat up some chicken or something, things like that. You know, I'm trying to do it better. I'm trying to do it right. But I will tell you, there's a lot of truth out there that is in that message. And I would like you to go and watch that message. It's a Sabbath message. I forget the title. It's like Sabbath, a message to Catholics. And then also the video I did recently on obeying them that have the rule over you. That's a good one to watch, guys, because there's so much misunderstanding of the Bible. And it's mainly by false Christians posing as true Christians. And they want people to be enslaved in bondage